Hello and welcome to SportsZone. We're kicking it off with the important stuff like usual. Studio 90. I'm joined by Aaron as usual. And in the world of soccer, I think something that happened kind of right after we went off the air last time was the first domestic cup that was won across Europe. Manchester City defeated Arsenal in the Carabao Cup 3-0, Pep Guardiola's first trophy in England. They lost in the FA Cup, so the quadruple is not still on, but possibly the first leg of a treble for them. And Aaron, sort of two teams heading in vastly different directions. I mean, can you sort of contrast the directions that Manchester City's heading, like 20 points clear, top of the league, and Arsenal just drifting off into irrelevancy?
Right, so obviously Man City coming into this game as favorites, having such a big lead in the Premier League, and definitely to be expected that they won this game. They dominated the game, they dominated possession, they played very well, and you would expect nothing less from this Man City team under Pep Guardiola this season, who have played not only have played so well, but just style-wise have just really changed the way we look at teams in the Premier League and the way that they play. So definitely a great performance by Man City, especially attacking-wise. But for Arsenal, like you said, a team going in a completely different direction. Defensively, I think is their biggest issue. Obviously they brought in Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, but I don't think they addressed their biggest issue, which was their back line, their center backs. And you saw that on that first goal when pretty much Ederson just punted the ball up to Aguero and Mustafi, just let the ball bounce over him, and they scored that goal. So obviously a bad performance by Arsenal, but like I said, their biggest issue was their defense. They didn't address it in the January transfer window, and I think that's a big reason why they lost this game and why they've been on a downward spiral recently.
And you could possibly, if you're trying to be an optimist from the Arsenal perspective, argue that Manchester City is that good, and that sort of would be expected. But then they follow it up, and they lose to City in the league in the midweek, and then they lose today against Brighton. So it's not necessarily just that City's that good. It seems Arsenal's that bad at the moment. Aaron, lots of calls for Arsene Wenger to finally, call it up. Do you think that this time it'll finally bear fruit and Wenger will be given a sack?
Wenger, in my opinion, is going to be at this club until he chooses not to be. And I don't think that's the way it should be. I think he should have been gone a few years ago. He was a great manager for them once with the Invincibles team and back in the day, leading Arsenal. But I think it's just gone stale for them right now. Obviously, it's not working, but I think Arsene Wenger has such a strong influence on the board at Arsenal that there's just no chance that they're going to push him out. And at some point, he's just going to choose to step down. But for Arsenal fans who are calling for him to be fired, I don't think that's going to happen just because he has a strong foothold on the board. Financially, he does great for Arsenal, so they like him. So Arsene Wenger is going to be there until he chooses to step down, whether that's this summer, whether that's next summer, or a few years down the road. But I definitely think that he's not going to be forced out. He's going to go out at Arsenal on his own terms.
That seems to be the case because he seems contract extension after contract extension. Other big clubs might not have had this tolerance, but Arsenal at the moment seems destined for their second consecutive finish outside the top four and missing out on a Champions League spot. But using Champions League as sort of a pivot, we're back into Champions League this week, and next week has sort of been impacted by a huge injury to a player with potentially not just Champions League ramifications, but World Cup ramifications. That was Neymar injured his ankle for PSG last weekend. There was disputes in the reporting on how long he was going to be out, but it seems like he's going to be out substantial amount of time, at least a couple months. Aaron, does this sort of, in the short term, how does this impact PSG, and do you think there might be potentially World Cup implications for Neymar?
Well, obviously Neymar, who in my opinion is the third best player in the world, PSG losing him is going to be a big loss for them. They still have Cavani, they still have Mbappe, they still have Demir, so they still definitely have attacking threats. So they're not going to be completely shot by this injury, but I definitely think that's going to hurt them. Neymar being their leader this season, and for Brazil going into the World Cup, I think Neymar, which I read in the reports, will be ready by the time the World Cup comes. But just going into the World Cup, coming off an injury, not being able to play, first team games is definitely going to be tough for him. And I think it could definitely impact Brazil in the World Cup.
Certainly, because he's the talisman that maybe they're looking for to right the wrongs of 4 years ago when they were embarrassed in their home country by Germany. So a lot of hopes riding on Neymar to get better and sort of get back to the level that he's been performing at recently. So that's certainly something that could shake up the world stage. But sort of shifting from Europe to stateside, where we had our domestic league MLS begin matches yesterday as well as today. We have new club Los Angeles FC, debuting. We have the returning champions Toronto FC losing in their opening game. Aaron, sort of looking ahead to this MLS season, what are some of the things that you'll be sort of targeting as storylines to follow?
Well, I'm hoping that there's some new teams emerge this year, and we've had 2 consecutive finals with Toronto and Seattle, so I hope that some new teams sort of emerge. And I think we saw that in the first week, a couple of big surprises, the Columbus Crew beating Toronto FC, Giassi's artist actually scoring a goal, which was a big surprise to me. And also Atlanta United, who many picked to be sort of a dark horse to win MLS Cup this year, losing 4-0 to a Houston team. So I'm definitely hoping that some new teams emerge this year, and we definitely saw that the first week, that there were some big surprises. And also a new club coming in LAFC. Obviously they have Carlos Vela. They're managed by Rob Bradley, so they definitely have star power. But it's going to be interesting to see whether that star power is going to translate to success week in and week out this MLS season. So definitely some big surprises the first week, but I think it's going to be a fun season, and I hope that TFC and Seattle aren't in the final again. I hope it's a new final.
And if it were to be a new final, based on just the offseason, first game limited evidence, which teams do you think can sort of challenge for that throne?
Well, I talked about Atlanta United. They didn't have a good first week, but I definitely think they can perform. Barco, which was their big signing, which was the biggest transfer fee in MLS history. He's an 18-year-old, a guy who many see as can be an Argentinian international in the future. He's injured right now, but he's gonna come back in 4 to 6 weeks. So once he comes back, I think Atlanta United are a big favorite to come out of the East. And then out of the West, I definitely think that there are a lot of teams that could be in contention. I think LA Galaxy, which is a team that didn't really play well last season, I think they can emerge as maybe a dark horse to come out of the Western Conference. They traded for Ola Kamara. There are reports that Zlatan Ibrahimovic is going to come in the summer. So that's definitely a team that I can see making MLS Cup.
And with MLS back, a lot more excitement stateside, so that's something that we'll certainly follow as the MLS season progresses. But I think that's all that we have for this edition of Studio 90. Stick around for more SportsZone after this.
Welcome back to SportsZone. This is your favorite baseball segment, Getting to Third Base. I'm Kristen. I have Aviva here with me. And spring training is fully underway, which is really exciting. The MLB, or the Bleacher Report, released a power rankings list at the beginning of this month, which I think it's still a little bit early to really determine whether or not the ranking was correct and seeing if all those teams are ranked where they should be. But they ranked the Houston Astros as number 1, coming off of their World Series win last year, followed by the Cubs, Dodgers, Nationals, and New York Yankees. And Aviva, I just wanted to get your initial take on that top 5 and see what you thought about that.
So it's not surprising at all that the Houston Astros is number 1. In most sports in baseball, the winner of the championship, the World Series, normally is number 1 in the rankings preseason the following year. That's not surprising. I still think the Astros are really good. We'll see if they do a repeat. Who knows? It's really hard to do a repeat in baseball, but they are ranked number 1. But the most interesting ranking that I found in those top 5 was that I disagree that the Yankees is below the Nationals. I don't know what they should be, but I think the Yankees should be above the Nationals because both the Yankees and the Nationals, they have some good pitching. But looking at their offense, the Yankees have a much better offense. Getting Stanton over the offseason with Judge, with Gary Sanchez, those 3 people right there, amazing, right? So I think they're much better than Murphy or Zimmerman that the Nationals have. So I think the Yankees should be above the Nationals.
I definitely agree with that. I think that the Yankees definitely really strengthened their lineup, obviously, over the offseason with the additions that they made. And then transitioning from teams that are ranked in the top 5, I want to move to the bottom 5. The Chicago White Sox, we saw were ranked in the bottom 5 in the ranking that was released. But they are looking into possibly acquiring a big bat in their lineup, Mike Moustakas. It's just a rumor, it's not definite, but I wanted to get your take. Do you think that Mike Moustakas is enough of a difference maker to really help this team?
I don't think so. Mike Moustakas last last season, batted .272, and the Chicago White Sox's had 6 players that had above a .272 offense, and they still came in 4th in the AL Central, and they were like 20 games below 500. So I don't think he's really going to be that big difference maker that will push them to beat the Indians or push them to beat, in the top of the AL Central.
And then another big name player that's still on the free agent market, which is really interesting at this point, is Jake Arrieta. So Aviva, the teams that are looking into possibly getting him are the Phillies and possibly the Nationals. So I wanted to get your take. Do you think that he would be the arm that the Nationals really need in their rotation?
I think so. The Nationals know that they're competing with the New York Mets, and the New York Mets, we have talked in the past about their rotation, but I think the Nationals want to have an extra arm in their back pocket pretty much to compete, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think it's interesting if he goes to the Phillies because the Phillies are not really doing that well in the past few years. So I don't know if they're really going to do much better than the Mets or the Nationals, who are pretty much 1-2, probably going to be in the NL East. So we'll see.
And then going off of what you said about the New York Mets, they have their new manager this year, Mickey Callaway. He's the former pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians, and he said that this group of pitchers that he has on the Mets is the best group of arms that he's ever seen, which is a pretty big statement considering the pitchers that he's coached with the Indians, a couple of Cy Young winners that he's worked with. So Aviva, do you think making a statement like that is really going to motivate this Mets rotation to really be able to compete and make it far this season?
I think it could go either way. On one side, I think it will push them to that they know they have the manager's approval, not really approval, but the manager's motivation, right? But on the other side, I think it might not scare them, but it will be like, shoot, our manager said such high things about us. We need to make sure we meet up to that expectation. So I don't know. I see both sides.
And I think it's definitely going to be interesting going forward to see how the season plays out for the teams that we talked about and whether these big names that are still on the free agent market will get signed in the coming weeks as spring training continues. But that's all the time we have for Getting to Third Base, and stick around for more SportsZone after this.
And welcome back to SportsZone. This is our NBA segment, Throwing It Up. I'm joined again by Justin. So we'll start off by talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, usually our main talking point week by week. Again, after that trade, people thought that their struggles would be over, but they're struggling once again, and there's drama in the locker room. J.R. Smith was suspended after throwing soup at an assistant coach. So, Justin, what is your take on the Cleveland Cavaliers and Soupgate?
And Soupgate, I think it's I think it's funny because I don't know. J.R. Smith will never cease to amaze me. The shoe tying thing, the just not knowing where he is half the time, and then now he throws soup. I don't know. I think we all thought for a minute LeBron James had J.R. Smith in check. Clearly, he's not in check. I don't know. I saw on Twitter it was a great debate between if it was soup or chili, and if not chili was a soup. I don't know. I don't think chili's a soup. We could have that debate a different time. But I think it kind of points to the struggles. Like, nothing's really been fixed. They are more athletic. The Cavs are a deeper team. But it's really LeBron right now, and they're still winning on Kevin Love. But right now it's LeBron's doing his best Russell Westbrook impression of last year, where he's pretty much having to do a triple-double to just keep them competitive. And, we'll see what happens when Kevin Love's get back, because they need a secondary primary scorer. LeBron's trying to shoulder that burden, and he's driving as much as possible, not getting the same foul calls. We'll see. I think their defense will improve slightly as they get closer to the playoffs, which I think is crazy to say just because of how little time they have. But I don't know. I think they're still the favorites to come out of the East, but I think it's going to be extremely challenging for them to actually pull it off.
Yeah, definitely agree. Whether it was super chilly, what we can agree on is that the Cleveland Cavaliers are struggling right now. Maybe the the emergence of Kevin Love coming back into the lineup will help. But right now, it remains to be seen whether the Cleveland Cavaliers will come out of the Eastern Conference. Shifting over to the Western Conference, the main talking point recently has been the Houston Rockets, who have been playing fantastic. They've only lost one game since Chris Paul has returned. They played very well versus the Los Angeles Clippers. James Harden pretty much ending Wesley Johnson's life on that crossover move, which was amazing. But Justin, obviously you still have the Golden State Warriors, who are maybe the greatest team we've ever seen assembled. But with the Houston Rockets playing so well recently, can they challenge the Golden State Warriors for that Western Conference title?
Yes, and I think if they have the best record at the end of the season, they have home court, I think they have a pretty good chance to win that series. Just because as good as the starting five is, or really the starting four is for the Golden State Warriors with Durant, Curry, Thompson, and Draymond, and then whoever you plug in at that starting five position, that starting lineup's great, but I think Houston's deeper. You got Joe Johnson, Luke Bonmute, P.J. Tucker, Nene. Who else am I missing? Gerald Green. He can always go off for a good 21 points any given night. I think they're deeper. They got enough wings to throw out Golden State. If they're home, if it's a 7-game series and Houston got Game 7 at home, I really think about picking Houston in that series. If it's at Golden State, I think Golden State wins that in 6 or 7. I can't see Golden State losing Game 7 at home. But Houston, if they can get this home court advantage, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Golden State's coming out of the West.
Yeah, definitely. You talk about Houston's bench has been great this season. A lot of credit's got to be given to Mike D'Antoni, who's done an unbelievable job coaching this Houston Rockets team. And it remains to be seen whether the Houston Rockets or the Golden State Warriors will come out of the Western Conference, which is going to be a great series if it comes to that in the Western Conference Finals. Switching over, we talked about two very good teams. Now we're going to talk about some bad teams. There's been a lot of talk with tanking recently in the NBA. Mavericks owner Mark Cuban came out and pretty much saying that he told his players, pretty much to lose games, and that tanking was going to be beneficial to them. So, Justin, what is your take on this sort of tanking movement that's been going on in the past few years? Is it beneficial for teams who they know aren't going to make the playoffs to just tank and try to get a high draft pick?
I mean, it is beneficial. I think we've seen it time and time again with Philadelphia. Case in point, you get Joel Embiid, especially Ben Simmons. It works out for them. It's, in the NBA compared to any other sport, if you get that one transcendent LeBron James player, you can go to the Western, you can go to the finals 8 straight years if you get a player of that caliber, or at least be competitive. And I think you're seeing that, especially with this year being the year before they changed the new rules. Everybody's tanking. I believe teams the bottom 8 teams are separated by 2 or 3 games. It's 18 wins is like the Mavs at the very low, and then the Chicago Bulls have 20, and then you get the Knicks a little above them at like 24. So this is always the time of year which sucks if you're an NBA fan, because you got the Houston Celtic game like we did have last night, and then you got get the Orlando Magic, Phoenix Suns playing, two-way contract players who you never heard of before because they're trying to lose games at the closing seconds. So this is really the time where stats get padded in terms of Houston's Golden State are probably going to have higher winning percentage than they normally would have. I don't know how you're going to fix this because it pays to be bad. It just does. If you can get a DeAndre Ayton, a Luka Doncic, even Trey Burke, the dude from Oklahoma. Trey Young, the dude from Oklahoma. If you can get him, you might be set up 4 or 5 years down the line as a championship contender. You see it with Golden State. You're seeing it with Philly right now. You're even seeing it with Minnesota, even though Jimmy Butler's pretty much been the catalyst, but their foundation is from their young guys from the draft. So I really don't think there's any way to fix it. It's just, can you decentivize it as much as possible?
Yeah,
I don't think
there's definitely no argument that tanking, getting a high draft pick, is beneficial to any franchise, especially with this draft class we have coming out. You mentioned DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, also Marvin Bagley. There are a bunch of guys in this draft class that could be franchise players. So if you're a team that's not going to make the playoffs, why not tank? Why not try to get a high draft pick? So definitely that's another storyline. We'll see what the NBA can do to sort of try to prevent teams from doing that, but definitely beneficial to tank. And we'll end by talking about the Western Conference. We already sort of know that the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets are going to be the top 2 teams, but that 3 through 8 is just really up for grabs right now. There are a lot of teams, in that contention. So Justin, out of all those teams, which team do you think could make the biggest noise in the playoffs?
Well, before he got hurt, I was going to say Jimmy Butler and the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll see if he can come back, how he'll look if he comes back, if he can come back at all. If he can come back playing the way he does or did, I could see them potentially going 6 or 7 games with like Houston, Golden State. I don't think they'll win either of those series, but it would be quite competitive. With that being said, and Kawhi Leonard still being a tremendous wild card, I think it's honestly Oklahoma City. They just got Corey Brewer. Paul George is playing out of his mind. Russell Westbrook. They're all starting to finally click. Melo's still a little hit or miss. He's been very streaky this year, but with Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard being the really uncertain people going forward into the playoffs, it has to be Oklahoma City. They have too much star power for it not to be them.
Yeah, definitely Oklahoma City are a team to watch. They started off the year pretty bad, but have been playing better as of late, sort of getting more chemistry with those 3 main guys, but it remains to be seen how they will do for the rest of the season and moving forward in the playoffs. I think we'll end on that. That's all we have for Throwing It Up, and more SportsZone after this.
Hello and welcome back to SportsZone. I'm joined by Justin. This is our yet-to-be-named college basketball segment.
That's right, we don't have a name.
Regular season play is wrapped up in college basketball, so we're sort of getting into conference tournament play. But before we talk about that, I think we'll address probably the biggest news to come out of college basketball this entire season, and that was the results of an FBI report that several top players at universities currently and several players who have moved on to the NBA receiving sums of money to play at their respective universities. Sean Miller and DeAndre Ayton, probably the 2 most implicated as a result of this sort of probe. But Justin, do you think this is surprising that these athletes are being paid? And if anything, what should the NCAA do with this news that's broken?
Well, to answer your first question, no. I think everybody, especially in college basketball, knows that these kids have been getting paid for however long, at least since the 90s. At least since the 90s. I don't know about the 80s and before that, but at least, I think it's hard to, yes, the scholarship and stuff is great, but when you're pulling a kid from say a Compton or a really poor neighborhood, and all you get him is a college scholarship, and you're like, well, you come up to Ann Arbor and you'll have no spending money, and you're only going to be on campus for the first half, you're only going to be on campus for fall semester, second semester you're going to be in the tournament, and then you're going to declare. But during fall semester, you have no money to spend because you're not coming from an area where your parents can just give you money and you're not allowed to work. So, of course I'm going to take money. It's just something that makes sense. Do I think it's a big deal? No. Do I think college athletes should be paid? I think it's more of, because I don't know how you could pay a school like ours comparatively to a school like, say, Michigan State. I think students should be allowed to use their likeness. I don't see why Johnny Manziel or Miles Bridges can't sell autographs and, have people pay for their autographs. I feel like that has nothing to do with pay for play. It's my brand.
Right.
I can make a t-shirt company. I can make a t-shirt company, put my name on it and sell it, and I'm not getting in trouble. What was your second question? I'm sorry.
What do you think the NCAA, NBA, do you think this will cause any big changes in the rules, or do you think it'll kind of just ripple away?
I don't think it will cause any changes as currently constituted. I think if we hear a Coach K or other coaches predominantly say Roy Williams get implicated or suggested to be implicated, I think it will tend to go that way. I think it's still kind of early. Hopefully this cause the NBA to change their one and done rule, kind of have a go to high school, go to college type of thing. And hopefully they could also do what college baseball and college hockey do, where you can have an agent. It's not illegal for you to be a college student playing those 2 sports to have an agent. So I think football players, basketball players should be able to have an agent. And I don't get why you can't be drafted like you are in baseball, like in, say, the second round if you're a sophomore, but you don't go. As long as you don't go, I don't see why you shouldn't lose your eligibility. I don't see the NCAA doing that because when have they done anything right ever? I don't know. I don't know. They still haven't even figured out what they're doing with the whole Michigan State Larry Nassar thing, which I think is should be at the forefront of the conversation more so than this. Granted, the FBI is involved with this, but that's a totally different but extremely worse issue than Miles Bridges getting $40 for a dinner, which he had to then donate to charity. But that's a different story. So yeah, I think it's much ado about nothing. I think the Under Armour shoe deal type stuff is more of the criminal aspect. I think the Sean Miller paying DeAndre Ayton is more of a, or allegedly paying DeAndre Ayton is more of just how you recruit players in the system, because I don't know how DeAndre Ayton would pick Duke over, say, Arizona without, an incentive. I'm pretty sure that's been going on for years. And I think we're going to see more stuff come out as the months and probably years to follow, because I'm sure this is going to take a while to unravel.
Yeah, and certainly if anything, history is something to go off the NCAA really not acting as a strong body, and this, as you said, not very surprising at all, may lead to more conversations about players being paid, but the player representation, because it's so fluid, they don't have a union, all these sorts of things, I sort of tend to agree with you that it might just not wind up going anywhere in the long run, which is unfortunate, because I think I tend to agree with you that these players, especially at these high-level universities where they are the big revenue generators for their universities, should get compensated in some way, shape, or form. But transitioning from all that controversy and scandal off the court to play on the court, another sort of questionable thing, while lots of conferences, basically every conference in America, was finishing their regular season games this past week, the Big Ten took their conference tournament up to Madison Square Garden in New York, and they are actually playing their championship game today, which means teams from the Big Ten who make the NCAA tournament will be out of action for the better part of 2 weeks, all sort of just to get this national stage at Madison Square Garden for these players to get eyes on. Justin, do you think this is just another sort of related issue and sort of exploiting these athletes to get eyes on a conference? And do you think this is sort of fair for those athletes who will be maybe competing for a national title?
Yeah, like I think we were talking about this in the back end here before we hit action on this, is that, yeah, I think it really makes no sense, because Michigan State, which is a team going to the tournament, even though they lost yesterday, they're going to have, 14 to 16 days off before, which is great for practice time, but I mean, in basketball and pretty much any sport, you need that live game action. To not have that for 2 weeks. Granted, they're still going to be a high seed. It's probably going to be a top 2 or 3 seed. But to not have that, it makes no sense when everybody else is still going to be playing and still going to be in that competitive action. Yeah, you could do stuff in practice and scrimmages, but it makes no sense. Yeah, I believe it's exploitation, because you want all the eyeballs as you can. The Big Ten probably has their own TV contracts and whatnot, so they're making even more money doing this. I mean, I get the allure of Madison Square Garden, but it's also the Big Ten. It's not the Big East. It's not even the whatever conference UConn is playing in now. I don't even know what it's called. It makes no sense. I don't know why they wouldn't put it in the United Center, or I don't even know where the Bucks play, but over there, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it's good because I love championship college basketball. It's usually one of the most exciting events of the year, but I don't know. It's weird. I think we both agree it's a weird, odd, somewhat stupid thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. The timing, everything about it just seems really odd, and the Big Ten doing their own thing, and that's perfectly fine. I think before we wrap up, as we move into championship week, I'll just ask you quite simply, what teams sort of that will be in action this week do you think will be playing for momentum and are favorites as we head into the NCAA tournament?
Heading into the NCAA tournament, I think it'll be interesting to see what Oklahoma does, because they've been struggling so much of late. are they a team that's, I think they might get in. I'm not sure. I think they're on the bubble, but if they perform well, I guarantee they're going to be into the tournament. So for them, also, how Arizona handles like these next couple weeks will be key. Will this be a distraction with the Aiden thing and the Alonzo Trier thing, and the Sean Miller thing, of course, because I think that they're one of the best teams in the country and have a chance to win it all. But will this be a distraction? We will see. And then you got the two powerhouses in Duke and North Carolina. Both teams I think can win it all, but also at the same time have extreme flaws. North Carolina struggles on defense in terms of stopping the three-point line and giving up a lot of points. Duke just struggles with focus defensively, and then the Grayson Allen, Marvin Bagley, can they play together thing? It worked yesterday, again, at the Duke-North Carolina game. Will it work going into the ACC tournament, which is probably the most competitive tournament moving forward? We will see. And then you got Villanova and Xavier. Xavier's playing outstanding basketball. You also got Villanova, or two of probably the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. Will the seniors or upperclassmen in Villanova, stay into the test of time, or will the upstart Xavier's, kind of surprise everybody and, take that 1 seed all the way? It'll be an interesting tournament time. It should be exciting. I don't think there's a consensus favorite, which is always nice, but it also means brackets are probably going to get busted really quick. So nobody's winning that Warren Buffett money. But I think this will be a really exciting college basketball tournament and postseason in general moving forward.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree. This seems to be one of the most wide open years, at least in recent memory, for college basketball. Feasibly, you could see, anywhere from 5 to 10 to maybe even 15 teams who, at the end of the day, if they were hoisting the national title, you wouldn't be surprised at all. So that certainly will make for exciting viewing and maybe make March a little bit more mad. But we'll keep an eye on that as we move forward. That's all the time we have. Stick around for more SportsZone after this.
And welcome back to SportsZone. This is our favorite segment, Tumbles, where we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly in the world of sports and the world at large. So I'll give a thumbs up. Last night was Founders, which was really fun in the African American Museum. It was amazing. Aviva, Chris, and Justin were there. Unfortunately, Vince could not make it, but it was a great time. The museum was amazing, so that was fun. So I'll just throw a thumbs up to that. Thumbs up to Arsenal Football Club, because they're terrible, and when they're bad, that's funny. So this past week they've lost 3 times, 2 times to Manchester City, 1 time this morning to Brighton and Hove Albion. It's not good at Arsenal, and it doesn't look like it's going to be fixed anytime soon, because Arsene Wenger is not going to leave until he wants to. So I guess Arsenal are just going to be bad for a while, and that's fun. I'll throw a thumbs up too. Next weekend over spring break, I'm going to Manchester. I'm going to the Manchester United-Liverpool match. I'm also going to the Manchester United-Sevilla Champions League match midweek. I've been looking forward to this for months, so I'm happy that it's so close to being here. I'm just thrilled about going, and I think that's all I have. I'll throw it over to Aviva.
Okay, so I'm going to give a thumbs up to the AU women's basketball team. They suffered 2 losses last week, but they're still the number 1 seed in the Patriot League tournament, and they play their first quarterfinal match tomorrow, so that's going to be exciting. Thumbs down to Tim Tebow. He is at Mets spring training, but he struck out on 3 pitches against Max Scherzer. He's not doing too well. I do this every single week, but thumbs down to the weather. Last week we had 2-3 days of nonstop wind. It was like a hurricane. It was horrible walking to class. And thumbs down to the attendance that we've had at SportsZone. I feel like hopefully after spring break we'll get a few more people to talk about sports, because it's so much fun. And here's Justin.
Hey everybody. Sorry, I'm a little out of it today. So thumbs down to the weather. It's been really windy. I went for a run outside yesterday. I don't know why, I wasn't really thinking get pushed over a couple times. It was fun. It was fun. Also, thumbs down to just it's the week before spring break, which sucks because there's always a lot of stuff to do, and I don't want to do it. I have a paper out to write. I don't want to do that. Everybody here knows that. I'm just gonna keep saying that and complaining. On to the good. College basketball postseason coming. That's always fun. NCAA tournament. My productivity is going to go down even more. Spring break. Who doesn't love a good week off from school? I need it. The senioritis is kicking in. Also, thumbs up to the Yankees. Every time I turn on Twitter or something, they just hit another home run. So I think that's cool. As somebody who doesn't follow baseball a lot, I like home runs. That's cool. Also, thumbs up to the Rockets for making it a potentially competitive Western Conference Finals. And then biggest thumbs up is Founders. Founders was fun last night. That was a good experience. But biggest thumbs up in the sports world is Shaquem Griffin, the linebacker from UCF. He was born with he had his right hand amputated when he was young. He benched 225 20 times yesterday, which was better than most of the wide receivers and even some of the offensive linemen. So that was really impressive. I also heard he ran a 4.38 today. So man, that's just perseverance and heart right there. So thumbs up to him in a big way. Now I'm going to pass it over to Kristen.
All right, I will give a thumbs up to spring training. We're fully underway in spring training, which is fun. I went down to Florida last weekend to see the Mets, which was a lot of fun. Thumbs up to David Wright. He's always been great with the fans. He was super nice to me and a few of my friends when we went down there. So that was a lot of fun. I'll give a thumbs up to Vince. Last week, as I said, I wasn't here, so Vince took the reins and did all the editing last week, which was great. And then I'll give a thumbs up to St. John's. The Big East tournament is coming up this week. They're playing Georgetown on Wednesday. They had a really devastating loss to Georgetown last month, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to bounce back and get the win that they deserve to get this upcoming Wednesday. So thumbs up to them. I hope they do really well in the tournament. And that's all I have today. I'll throw it over to Vince.
All right. So I'll start off. I'll also go thumbs down to the weather. I was not at Founders yesterday, but that was because I didn't think I was going to be in DC this weekend. I was supposed to be flying up north, but because of all this fun bomb storm, whatever, wind, that wasn't possible. So stuck here for the weekend. Unfortunately, didn't get to go to the Founders Day event, which by all accounts sounded like a really awesome, amazing thing. So that's unfortunate. Then just right in, we'll go thumbs down also to Arsenal. They lost their 9th game of 2019, or 2018, wow, I can't even think properly. They lost their 9th game of the year so far, which is really unfortunate. We'll keep it brief and just say, what they've shown the past couple weeks isn't Arsenal Football Club. That's not the Arsenal Football Club I know. Hopefully it gets better, but it's not Arsenal Football Club, put simply. We'll go thumbs down to the VCU men's basketball team. They did beat Fordham by 25 yesterday, but they lost to George Mason in just the most excruciating way on Wednesday night. They were up by 9 with 3.5 minutes to go, blew that lead. Then they turned the ball over with 10 seconds left. George Mason missed a jump shot, but then a missed box out led to a tip-in at the buzzer. So they lost to George Mason, a team that I watched them beat by 20 a month ago. So the team has just really fallen. They finished the year 9-9 in the A10, one of their worst years basically since the turn of the 2000s. So VCU basketball could be anywhere from I think they wound up as the 6th seed in the A10, pretty bad this year. Hopefully they can make a run in the tournament, and I would really just love to see them play Richmond at some point so they could beat Richmond at least once this year. That would make everything okay. I'll go thumbs up. The AU men's basketball team, though, they did lose in the first round of the Patriot League tournament. Saeed Nelson scored a career-high 41 points in a losing effort. That was pretty awesome, and if there's any glimmer of hope for our men's basketball program over the next 2 years, it is Saeed Nelson. he was named second team all week, so good for him. Thumbs up the women's basketball team playing tomorrow night in Bender in a quarterfinal matchup. It was also announced that Megan Jebbia, the head coach, was the coach of the year, and Emily Kinniston was the player of the year in the Patriot League this year, so big thumbs up to both of them. And I think finally I'll round it out. Thumbs up. The wrestling team, AU's wrestling team, is at EIWAs this weekend. So far, Jarek Kazanik has clinched a spot in the NCAA tournament with Brett Dempsey, Michael Sprague, and Josh Terrell all having matchups later today to potentially book their place in the NCAA tournament. So that'll be really cool. If 4 wrestlers could go to the NCAA tournament, that would be certainly the most in my 4 years here. So thumbs up, the Eagles sports doing well at the moment. And I think that'll round it up. So for everyone who was here today, for Kristen, for Aviva, Justin, Aaron, doing mics in the back like a rookie. Thank you for watching SportsZone, and we will see you next time.
Why?
I don't know.
That makes no sense.
I don't
He can't
know.
shoot.
Actually, I think he can.
I
I think he can.
don't know.
Talk about the Big Ten tournament, I guess.
Why?
So early. It's
Why?
so early. It's a week before everybody else's tournament. I don't understand.
Like, that used to be like literally the last game before selection, the
I
selection show.
thought Big Ten wasn't the Big Ten in Verizon Center last year?
Yeah.
I don't know. Why don't they just keep it there?
Like, it used to be like in like Milwaukee or something, which makes sense because like schools are around there. Like, literally, like, sure, Rutgers is in New Jersey.
They can't
but
put
like,
it in the United Center in
Yeah.
Chicago?
I
I mean, I get the Garden, but it's like
Like,
so far
that's
removed.
so obnoxious.
The only school that's even close to that is Rutgers, and I don't even think Rutgers is good.
Like, Rutgers is like probably like the worst team. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna fly in from Iowa to New York City.
Yeah, it's also 1:46, and I don't know what to do with myself. How's it already almost 2 o'clock?
I don't know. I don't know.
I had about 5.5 pages left to write.
Hey, at least you got what? That means you've got like half a page written.
Yeah,
There you go. That's a start.
yeah, that's a start.
Is it double spaced?
It's weird because she's like, you can make the format any way you want. It's just maximum 6 pages, and I'm like, okay.
It's odd.
Because my whole thing was like, can I double space it? Should I? Well, I also have to put like something like tables and exhibits
Oh,
in there.
yeah.
So I'm like, should I double space it? I don't know how many exhibits she wants. I don't know. I didn't think it was a thing where I needed any to
Right.
begin with, and I'm just like, I know she wants some. This is interesting.
All right. So what?
Are you ready?
No.
Dos segundos.
Dos minutos.
Dos or us. We'll figure it out.